Hi, it's Joel Mark Witt and Antonia Dodge from Personality Hacker doing a short series of videos about relationships behind our studio slash house here in beautiful Pennsylvania. It's starting to get a little colder because the evening is going on here in October as we shoot this. But we're talking about relationships, and we are giving some principles about how you and your partner can understand your personality types and then each other's personality types to create that intimate, connected relationship that I believe most people in relationships crave. You probably crave it. If you want deep intimacy, some of the principles we've talked about in some of the previous videos, and in this video, I think will help you create that relationship that is so powerful for you. Now, the reason why we're talking about principles is because there are 16 Myers-Briggs types in the Myers-Briggs system. If you do the math, there are 256 total type combination possibilities. So we don't have any space in this video specifically to talk about all 256 combinations. So we're going to give you some principles to take your personality type and your partner's personality type, compare and contrast, and find some of the things, mine some of the gold from that, from these videos that you can apply to your relationship.
So the principle we want to talk about in this video is based on proprietary content to Personality Hacker that we call the FIRM model. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the FIRM model, my recommendation is that you go check out the podcast on the FIRM model, where we've laid out how each personality type has a relationship with the FIRM model. But just as a bit of an overview, the FIRM model...
You can also get our book, too.
And it's on the book.
It's in the book, so go get the book, too.
That's right. There's a whole chapter on it. But the FIRM model, just to give you a little bit of an overview, it stands for freedom, invulnerability, rightness, and management, which are the four fixations that different personality types have when they're not getting their needs met. Now, our driver or dominant cognitive function, the part of our personality type that we identify with the most, has certain needs. If you're an extrovert and a perceiver, an EP, or the four EP personality types, then the thing that your driver or dominant function needs more than anything else is freedom, because you're leading with either extroverted intuition or extroverted sensing. The freedom that is required to be able to explore your world, if it is not something that you've been able to experience, ends up becoming a fixation, which is why sometimes EPs get a reputation of not being able to stay put in any one place, any one job, any one relationship. It's because freedom is something that driver or dominant function requires, and if it's been ignored for too long, then it becomes sort of an obsession. For the IJs in the Myers-Briggs personality typology system, the four IJ types, it's a sense of invulnerability that they're seeking. Mostly because the way their driver dominant function works is that they capture information in order to ruminate on it later, either by reviewing what's happened in the past or thinking in terms of what can be projected into the future. But regardless, all the information they take sort of gets sucked inside of themselves, and now they have an opportunity to sort it, ruminate, try to figure out its meaning, but now it's inside. And so what will happen for IJ types is that sometimes they're in situations where they take in the wrong information, and now it feels like it's perpetually living inside of them, like a bull in a china shop. So they get a little bit skittish sometimes to new situations that are too much for them to process. And so their fixation, especially if they've been in very traumatic situations, maybe they've experienced some abuse or some people who have been deliberately hurtful, they can start getting skittish and have a desire to be invulnerable to any of the things that they could take in and gets trapped inside of them. And so really it's a matter of wanting to not have traumatic experiences live in perpetuity inside. And so invulnerability becomes their fixation, which is why they can sometimes shut themselves off from the rest of the world. The third letter of R stands for rightness. This is the fixation that can sometimes affect IPs in the Myers-Briggs system, so the four IP types. And the reason for this is that their driver or dominant function of introverted thinking or introverted feeling can sometimes feel like it's being marginalized by other people, since it's a decision-making process that is entirely subjective inside of themselves. Sometimes they can't even explain it to other people why they feel so strongly about the things that they do. They just feel it very strongly. Even those who use introverted thinking, which oftentimes is considered one of the most data-heavy functions, will sometimes come to conclusions that other people can't see or experience because they don't have all the same connections going on inside of themselves. And so in their effort to explain to other people why they think or feel what they do, other people will frequently marginalize them, or at least they feel that they get marginalized unless they can quote-unquote show the work. And so what they end up doing is end up getting an attitude and doubling down on their right to have the thoughts, opinions, and feelings that they do, which is why rightness becomes a fixation. Their desire to not be marginalized, their desire to be taken seriously and validated can become a fixation if they feel that they've been denied that throughout their life. And the fourth and final letter is M for management. This is usually the fixation for the EJs in the Myers-Briggs system, especially if they've been given a life that feels very chaotic or out of control, or if they believe that if they don't manage all of the situations in their life that they won't be valued by other people. If they only were valued for the fact that they were so put together, or that they did so much, in the outside world, or produced results so well. Their fixation can be on management, since they lead with an extroverted judging function, extroverted thinking, or extroverted feeling. And so that is their sweet spot, is in making sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be, whether in a timeline or literal objects finding a home. And so they can sometimes get fixated on management if they've been raised in a chaotic environment, or if they've been given the message that that is the only thing that they have to bring of value.
So you're probably already recognizing some of these for you and your partner in your relationship. You might be with an EP, and maybe you are an IJ, and you realize your partner's craving this freedom all the time and can't seem to get pinned down and can't seem to commit to schedules or any, and you're like, what is going on? Well, it's that fixation that might be showing up for them. There might be various reasons, but this is one lens to look at your relationship through. And so as you look at these four kind of slices of how these fixations manifest themselves, just start to pattern recognize maybe how you and your partner are showing up. You might identify it in yourself, how maybe you're an IP in the Myers-Briggs system, and you find yourself having to strive to be right in conversations or conflict or in life in general. And that could be something you become self-aware around, that fixation you might have, or you might be over relying upon that. So these are some patterns I think that are really key for us in relationships to make sure that we're understanding ourselves and the other person.
And if these fixations come from perpetually unmet needs for both partners in particular, then there will be a contest, an almost all the time contest of trying to get those needs met. And it will appear as if the other person is putting their needs above your own, which is in some ways true because their driver or dominant function is effectively starving. And so anytime we're in a starving situation, we're trying to nourish ourselves as much as we possibly can, even if we can't get a quote unquote full meal, and even if we just get snacks, right? We just have like little senses of freedom here, or little senses of rightness here. What we're trying to do is we're trying to nourish an unmet need. So one of the most important things you can do is identify what your firm fixation is, your partner's firm fixation, to determine whether or not it's showing up in your lives all over the place, and how you can create an environment or a schedule or whatever it is in your life that you need to create in order to get both needs met. Have a conversation around what it means. Freedom does not mean freedom to EPs. All EPs have a different sense of freedom that they're trying to nourish their driver or dominant function with. So knowing how freedom is manifesting for the EP in specificity will help get that need met. Sometimes it takes a little while to figure out where the unmet need comes from, the etymology of it. What in the person's past told them that they were not allowed to have it? Are they experiencing guilt over wanting this to be something in their life? Is this something that they believe that is a bad part of who they are, and maybe have some narratives or stories around how it makes them broken? Really going into and dissecting that conversation to figure out what the unmet need, the specific unmet need is, can be huge. Another thing is to remember that sometimes our firm fixation doesn't live in our driver or dominant process. Sometimes it can live in one of our other cognitive functions. So if you're an EP, say, and you're actually identifying with the need to be right, your firm fixation might actually live in your co-pilot or auxiliary function, because that was what was marginalized or in your world, right? Like you were never allowed to have your own take on reality, maybe. And so now you're doubling down all the time on trying to be right. Or maybe it's control that you're trying to have because you got the message that being controlling was your value. Or it might even be that you feel very vulnerable because maybe you went through some major trauma, or you had a situation where you were abused. And so your firm fixation is living in your 3-year-old or inferior function. This can happen for different types, but just being able to understand what that firm fixation is, if you have one, and to be able to identify what your partner's is, can open up a whole different dialogue. A dialogue that really addresses getting those needs met, so everybody comes to sort of a baseline of relaxed, and so that you can address other issues outside of just feeling perpetually starving.
Yeah. If you want more information about your personality type and your partner's personality type, we recommend going over to our website, personalityhacker.com. We have articles, we have videos, and we have podcasts we've recorded. A ton of resources for you, whatever your type is. You can even take the test there and find out, discover your type, and discover more about yourself and your partner. We really believe that, again, this is just one way to help you in your relationship, but we believe it's a very powerful way, understanding the Myers-Briggs type that you possess and your partner possesses. This can help you find common ground, help you identify the places where you're having conflict, and work through those challenges and build that intimate, connected relationship that I believe you crave. That's probably why you're watching this video, right? You want that deep sense of intimacy and connection. So head over to personalityhacker.com and get those resources, and then also share your story, your perspective, some of the things, maybe questions you have directly below this video, so we can have you be part of the dialogue in the greater community here at Personality Hacker. We want to meet you, get to talk with you, and discuss things in the comments below this video. So thank you for being a part of this.
And thank you for joining us for this short series on the main principles you can use to better understand your partner, appreciate them, get their needs met, and have a great relationship.
We'll talk with you on the next video.